Hello and welcome to week 8, our last week of Ed 355. So hopefully at this point, this week should just be kind of wrapping things up, completing our assessment work, and kind of tying up some loose ends. So if we take a look at our syllabus for week 8, we'll find that most of our learning outcomes are really focused around that assessment plan in your conferencing notebook. So let's check in and see that first of all, your learning outcomes for this week are to finalize the assessment and progress monitoring plan for your small group of students. You've been working on this since about week 4, so you've had a good few weeks working with this group, and you're making sure that you're keeping track of their pre- and post-test data and any formative assessment data as you're conferring with your students. And that learning outcome is taken from or assessed through your assessment plan right here that you'll see. You also are going to share the results of your growth plan and your assessment work through your discussion board. It's noted right here. And so you're going to be sharing pieces of your work, what went well, what didn't, how did the notebook help. So we'll take a look at those questions that you'll answer in your discussion board prompt. You'll also work with classroom students to publish a final piece of writing in the genre of your choice. So whatever you have been conferring with your students about in that small group, you are going to have a published piece from them. So that is just something that you will include as part of your assessment plan, this published piece right here, and it'll be a separate upload. So we'll take a look at that. And then you're also going to complete a final exam on teaching writing in the elementary classroom. So this exam is actually just going to be your interactive notebook you can see here. So that is your final, is the completion of that interactive notebook now that we've come to the conclusion of our course. So let's take a look at our weekly content, and we'll head all the way down to week 8. And you'll see here we've got quite a bit of information built into this week. Your discussion board prompt is to, throughout the second half of the course, you've been working with a small group of your students to show the growth in their writing skills. I want you to share about that journey. Tell us where they started, what you did to support their writing growth throughout your 4 weeks with them, what strategies did you use from this course, and where did they finish? Also, I would love for you to comment about your conferring notebook and your assessment plan. How did those tools support you in monitoring the growth of your students throughout that process? So that discussion board is meeting your second learning outcome, where we talk about and we share our work through that assessment plan. So the other piece is you have several individual pieces that all connect back to that assessment plan in your conferring notebook. So if you look here, this rubric, Ed 355 Conferring Notebook Rubric, is the exact same rubric that's in week 4. The difference is that in week 4, you sent me kind of like your skeleton of your conferring notebook. Now you are going to have information input into your notebook based on your small group of students that you've been working on. So within your conferring notebook that you created, you can either update the one that you sent me, or you can do a new one and send me a link to that one, whatever you prefer. But you are tracking each time that you met with that small group of students, what did you talk about when you were meeting with them, and what were their needs when you were conferring with them? What were their needs? Did they change? Were they the same? And then what were their strengths? What were some things that they really did well throughout that process? So again, this is the same rubric that's in week 4. The only difference is that you've now completed these pieces of that conferring notebook. Once you've updated that, you'll turn it in right here to this link. And then the same for your assessment plan rubric. This is again the same rubric that's in week 4 that you use to create your assessment plan. So you are going to have this information. Your group needs to be between 1 and 4 students. They're working on the same writing skills. You've met with them for about 6 sessions, about 20 minutes It's really just kind of that you don't confer for 20 minutes, but in all, you should have about 20 minutes of conferencing built in for the students that you're working with. I'm not as concerned about the 20 minutes as much as I am that you are conferring with them on a regular basis throughout that 4-week period. The plan, based on their pre-assessment writing score. So that could have just been a writing piece that they had when you started your group. It could be a specific writing standard that they scored low on their benchmark assessments. So you're going to include that data and information. Identify the standard course of study that you're targeting. Include the dates of your conferences and any resources that you needed to give to them during your conferencing or instruction. For your assessment notebook, you need to be showing, again, the same thing that was on the conferring notebook rubric, the frequency of your conferences, the content of your conferences, when your next conference, like what you're going to speak to in your next conference, and then any strengths that the student had that you noticed during that conference. Then you're also going to, for the sake of this assessment plan, include a summary, including data. So it's kind of similar to your discussion post that you're going to be talking about where they started, where they ended, what happened in between, but making sure that you're including data. So it's a little bit harder with writing because we've not had, unless you're using a rubric as you're going along, it's difficult to say, Emily was at a 1 when we started our group, and now she's at a 4, and our rubric goes to 5. So that's a little bit tricky if that's not something that's built into your process. But you can use data where you can find it. For example, if you were targeting your spelling and grammatical errors, then maybe, it is that in the initial pre-assessment, the student had this many data or this many errors, and in the final published piece there were only this many errors. So I'm not looking for data as you would maybe find it in a math intervention group or a specific reading intervention group, but I'm looking for how you know that the student made growth. What is your evidence to show that they grew from your first session to your last? And then your reflection at the end about the process overall. How did your group, how do you feel your group did? How did your group function together? How did the notebook help you? So again, tying into that discussion board post. But this is also going to be turned in through this assessment plan final link. So you created an assessment plan in week 4, and this is going to be information put into that and finalized. So that ties back to our first learning outcome where we talked about all the pieces that are going to come together as you finish your assessment plan and conferring notebook. Next, you're going to simply upload a published piece. So you can upload a couple if you want to. If it is something that you want to scan several published pieces together and upload them together in one document, that would be great. I always love seeing student work. And I do realize that published work from kindergarten looks very different than published work from even 2nd grade, 1st grade, 5th grade for sure. So I know the context that you're sending me the work through. So at least one of the students in your group, I would like to see their finished published piece that you helped build them up to. So you're going to simply just scan and upload here. There's nothing else you need to do with it. I will just look at that in connection with your assessment plan in your notebook. All right, and finally, we are going to complete your interactive notebook, and that is, the rubric for that is throughout your coursework as those specific sections were relevant to the weekly content. But you are going to complete a reflection, very simple, once you've completed your interactive notebook. So if you click on the triangle, circle, square, you're going to see this organizer and a brief rubric to explain what I'm looking for. So with regard to your interactive notebook, I want you to tell me 3 important points that you're going to take away. It could be related to the content within your notebook. It could be about the notebook itself. It could be the interactive notebook process. Anything that were kind of 3 big takeaways for you. And then you're going to tell me a question that's going around your mind. What is something that now that we've finished the interactive notebook, what is something you're still kind of questioning? And again, it can be about the notebook as a whole, the process, the content, anything. And then something that squares with your beliefs. So now that we finished the notebook, what was reaffirmed for you through this interactive notebook process? So these 3 prompts are not about other pieces of the coursework. This is specifically about the interactive notebook. And if you look here, this reflection and interactive notebook completion is worth 50 points. So to get all 50 points, you need to answer the triangle, circle, and square cohesively, fully develop your information. Don't just bullet point it. Tell me some really good information. How can you use this? Because I will take this feedback as we work on building this program and this course for future sessions to modify anything that may be necessary. So in order to get the full 50 points, you also want to make sure that you're articulating your thoughts about the interactive notebook takeaways. Make sure that you're engaging, that you're providing good, solid information and feedback, and that you don't have many grammatical errors. It's not distracting or difficult to read because of errors, and then that will get you all 50 points. You can make a copy of this. You can just write this in a narrative, however you feel is best to do. And then you'll upload that here in this interactive notebook reflection. And then your interactive notebooks themselves are shared with me in Google. So I can see the updates as you're creating them, so you don't need to resubmit them anywhere. You just need to make sure that you are keeping them updated. And then when we get to our deadline, we will make sure that everything is in there before I grade. So I will take a look at that before I touch base, but you don't have to upload or submit your interactive notebook again, as long as you're uploading it and making your changes in that Google Slides form. So that is all for week 8. There's a lot of little bits and pieces, but it's all kind of wrapping up what we've been talking about throughout the course and tying up those loose ends of our assessment plan, our conferring notebook, and all of the little bits and pieces of our writing strategies and best practices when we teach writing. So hopefully what you've taken away from the course can benefit you in the classroom. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. As we wrap up the end of this course, I look forward to hearing from you. If you're looking at your grades or anything like that, please reach out if you have any questions. Thank you so much and enjoy your last week.